Well, I want to start with Jeff Reichert to tell me, when one sits up and decides what your first film's going to be, generally redistricting is the thing at the top of the list.
Why not?
What captured your imagination?
Well, I first heard about it in 2003. The Texas story that you saw in the film is part of what would have been another kind of film. We initially thought we were going to make a movie just about Texas because there's a lot more to that story. But at a certain point, you start to realize it's like, wow, this is something that happens in every state, and we all live in these districts, and every district has a story to it. And there's something kind of fascinating about this idea that there are these stories that are being told in the proverbial smoke-filled rooms, and they're drawing the lines and affecting us. We don't really know about it, and so even though you can't really, I guess, film a gerrymander, it seemed like there had to be a way to try to get this out there for people to understand it and look at it. And I think we came close. There's some things I changed, but
You want to go back and elaborate there?
No.
Okay, all right.
First, I want to congratulate everyone for coming here tonight, because there could be no more boring topic than reapportionment. So for you to be here is a great tribute to your intellect and your passion. Maybe questionable commentary on your sanity, but I'm thrilled that you can be here. But when people say, why is reapportionment important? Because it affects your ability to fire legislators or governors or congresspeople that are not doing the job you elected them to do. If you're in a 70-30 seat and you're on the 30 side, you're not going to fire anybody. If you're in a competitive seat, 52-48, 53-47, even if you're in the 47 side, you might be able to oust the 53, someone with 53 because of circumstances. I mean, look what's happening right now in Congress. I mean, with admittedly a Congress that's benefited from partisan gerrymandering, the Congress is still very much up for grabs and could go either way now.
So in 2 of the decades, so just to rewind, I mean, I think you get the gist from the movie, but we redraw lines every 10 years because we just finished taking a census, and so that's when you have the freshest numbers. So we're really talking about this thing happening once a decade. And in the 1980s, the legislature, just like in the 2000s, managed to work it out between themselves, and they passed lines that were protective of themselves. In the 1970s and the 1990s, interestingly, the legislature couldn't agree with the governor, and so the whole process got kicked to the courts to do. So it's interesting because we kind of have this test case where you can actually see what happens when a group of people don't have a vested interest in how the lines are drawn to protect themselves. What happens in that litmus test for those particular decades? And in the 1990s, which, since I didn't read that book, I don't know very far back, but I will just say that in the 1990s what happened was that the courts drew the lines, and in a lot of ways they're centered on the same communities, but they just don't have all the crazy jagged, in and out to carve out this community or carve in that incumbent. And we saw the legislature change hands in terms of majority 2 times during the decade. Once was in the mid-90s when the big Republican Contract with America thing happened, and people were moved politically to support the Republicans, and then I think in the next 2 years they were moved back, and they actually gave Democrats for the first time in a long time a 2/3 majority of the legislature. So I think that actually the thing that happens with lines that are drawn fairly to reflect where communities are is that essentially it allows voters to express, where they're feeling in the political mood of that particular year or 2 years. And I think that sends a powerful message to the legislators that we elect to keep on your toes. It's not that we're trying to punish them or fundamentally we're saying you guys are bad guys. I think it's just that and I think Alice Huffman of NAACP said this best, we have a lot of legislators who are beloved. And on a one-on-one level, if I were to name, who is elected from my district, I would say I love that person. But I think the reality is that if you know that you don't have a chance of being challenged either from within your party at the primary level or at the general level, you get cozy. And you don't have to get in touch with your constituents. And when it comes to hard decisions like the budget, I don't have to really stick my neck out. And I don't have to listen when a natural disaster or something really precious happens to the community that I need to be there. And so instead, I'm just going to go around to the armadillo fairs and, you know, and kind of hand out resolutions that feel good, but I don't have to stick my neck out when it comes time to really represent my community, because you can't unelect me. And I think that's the danger that we saw all throughout the 2000s that we didn't see in the 1990s. In the 1990s, when the courts drew it, you really had people paying attention because they knew that around the corner a challenger could be successfully mounted against them.